that is done. Fantastic. And so, yeah, I'm also going to be sharing the screen at certain points too. I do have some slides that I want to show with you as well, to add as much value as we can. You know, for the majority of us, we're probably going to be stuck in our homes for at least 2 weeks, if not longer. So it's really important that we have these extra coaching tools to help us navigate these uncertain times. And you know, in the last few months before all of this kicked off, there's a lot of talk about disruption and innovation and change management and all of that. Well, Mother Nature, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is giving us a real life example of what disruption looks like. And of course, our hearts go out to all those individuals and families that are affected. And we need to be able to get on with life. So certainly these tools that I want to be sharing with you today are tools that you can use to coach yourself, to coach your family and the people that you care about, and to coach your colleagues and your teams, right? Because there's a hell of a lot of uncertainty out there. In fact, wherever you are in the world, I'm not sure how your government is responding, but certainly here in Thailand, they're seem to be changing the plan by day. So regardless of all of that, we need these tools. It's really helpful for us to have these coaching skills to help us grow and to help us improve as an individual, as a professional coach, and as a leader, leading your teams through these uncertain times. So let's just share a little bit, guys. I just want to show you here, these are just some of the organizations that I've been working with here at Coachology. And given the level of uncertainty at the moment, a lot of these clients have paused some of their training initiatives at the moment. Having said that, a lot of these companies are also looking at doing online coaching and especially group coaching. So for those of you that are considering a professional career in coaching or using these coaching skills, please rest assured that everywhere throughout Asia at the moment, these coaching tools are being used by truly world-class individuals. Now, can we just have everyone to mute themselves, please? I've got a little bit of noise coming back there. Just double check that you're muted. Yep, I think we've got it now. Awesome. Yeah, there is a way I can mute them somehow, some way. But if you guys can mute yourselves, please, just so there's no background noise, that's really helpful. Thank you. For those of you using Zoom for the first time, get used to it. It's a powerful, very, very useful tool that you can use to, you know, coach your clients, to lead your teams, to conduct brainstorming sessions. It's a really, really useful tool to be able to use. Awesome. So just, please guys, rest assured, if your goal is to be a leader that uses coaching tools, or you want to be a professional coach or facilitator, there are a ton of organizations that are investing in coaching at the moment. Obviously, with the level of uncertainty at the moment, there are quite a few companies that are pausing on that. For example, the hospitality industry. Clearly, no one's traveling at the moment. And there are a lot of organizations that are, you know, contacting us to find out how we can continue the learning and development online. So programs like Zoom and there's a bunch of other programs out there are very, very useful. So if that is your goal, to become a professional coach, there's a greater awareness that coaching is a tool that can be used in our leadership functions. Yeah. So one of the things I really want to address first, in terms of becoming an effective coach, whether you're a leadership coach, whether it's your full-time job, whether it's you're just exploring to look how you can use it for yourself and others, one thing is for sure is that you want to have an open mind and you want to have a curiosity of a child. And I think to have that mindset as an effective coach is absolutely essential, to be open-minded and to be curious, because when you're working with clients, and when I say client, that can be, you know, your subordinates, it can be your peers in another department, it can be an actual paid client, it can be pro bono, whoever it is, let's just call them a client. Your client is the expert in his or her life. Your client is the one who knows most about the problem or the situation that they're facing at the moment. And your client has the ability to be able to solve their own problems. We must believe that the client, has all of the resources within them to be able to solve their own problems. Yeah. So yeah, it's really, really important that that we're able to have that curiosity, that open-mindedness as a coach, because it's absolutely essential to be a more effective coach. So please, wherever you are on your coaching journey, we definitely want to have that open-minded curiosity, because that's how you are going to become a better version of yourself. And this is how you're actually going to be able to more effectively help others. Now, when we think about having that open mind and being curious, we also need to be aware that the growth of your client, the growth of yourself, is going to happen outside of the comfort zone. And what do I mean by that is, think of the comfort zone as probably more accurately described as your familiar zone. So in other words, what we do again and again and again, that becomes familiar to us. And our habits and our programs, we're running 95% on our habits and our programs. In other words, 95% of our behavior is simply unconscious. And so this is what we mean is it's familiar. It's what we do again and again and again. So to achieve that next level of success, whatever that is for you or whatever that is for your client, it might be better relationships, it might be getting promoted within their career, it might be starting their own business, it might be surviving and thriving through this uncertain time right now. Whatever it is, it's your ability to get outside of that comfort zone, to get outside of what is familiar, and do something different, right? Because that is where your growth is going to happen. That's where you're going to find the magic, and that's where you're going to achieve your goals. In other words, if we keep doing the same things over and over and over again, we're going to get the same results. And in fact, that's the definition of insanity, is doing that same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So we must be really open to exploring new ways of being, new ways of doing. And this is true for yourself, and this is going to be true for your clients as well, right? So case in point, very, very simply, these coaching culture workshops, I've been delivering them now in Bangkok for 2 years. We've also run them in Malaysia and Singapore a couple of times. And well, with this whole COVID-19 thing, we actually had a hotel workshop scheduled for today, which we quickly switched over to offering an online service. So that's something a little bit different, something a little bit new, and we must be willing to embrace that. And for your clients, guys, when you're actually coaching real life clients, oftentimes your client is going to go deep. They're going to be vulnerable. They're going to potentially be sharing things with you that they've not shared with anyone before. And that's going to be uncomfortable, right, for them. That's going to be them getting outside of their comfort zone. And for sure, there's going to be a level of discomfort there with your client. So it's up to us to support our clients to get out of our comfort zone. And what better way to do that than to actually lead by example and get out of our own comfort zones by doing something different, by learning new tools and techniques and applying them into our life. Yeah. Now, I want to start by sharing with you a little screen here. There's a couple of ways to create a coaching culture in your organization. And I know some of you are only going to be online here for 30 minutes or 60 minutes or so. So I want to share with you this process of how to implement the coaching culture. And this can work whether you are a 3-man or woman company, whether you're an SME with up to 100 employees, or whether you're a multinational organization. These principles are pretty much the same in what we're about to share with you now. There's going to be 2 ways you can create this coaching culture. And one's going to be from the top down, which is the slide I'm about to share with you now. And the other one's going to be from the inside out. Okay, so we'll look at them one by one, and then we'll go from there. Yeah. So if we come back to here. Right. So this is the top-down approach for creating a coaching culture. The big circle is your company, whatever size the company is, and you're wanting to create the coaching culture, which is going to be an internal process inside of the company. You can see here on the top left-hand side that there is the external support in the light bluish color, and then there'll be internal support, which is provided by the teams internally. Yeah. So this is in a perfect world, guys. I'm going to share with you the perfect world scenario, and then I'm going to share with you the realistic scenario, both as well. So depending on where you are in an organization, you can actually create the coaching culture. So from the top-down approach, the CEO, the MD, the GM, whoever's basically the big boss, is seen to be receiving some form of coaching. And if you can't reach to the CEO or the MD, then you can start with your department head, right? If you're the department head of a department and you want to start to practice the coaching culture inside of your department, then you can put your own self into this picture here. What this does though, guys, when the CEO, the MD, the GM, basically the decision maker, when he or she is being seen to receive coaching from the rest of the organization, this begins a trickle-on effect of that coaching is a worthwhile experience. What do I mean by that? It means that the MD shows the rest of the organization that it's worth the investment of time to be coached. It shows the rest of the organization that it's worth the investment of money to be coached. It shows the rest of the organization that no matter how senior I am, I always have room for improvement and growth. It shows that I'm willing to push beyond my own familiar zone, my own comfort zone, and explore the process of coaching. So as we can see, there's multiple layers of benefits by the big boss, whoever that might be, showing that he or she is receiving coaching. And at this level, when they're the top of the organization, it should be someone who does have coaching experience already, and that'll often be an external executive coach. Now, what begins to happen then as the big boss is seen to get coaching? Internally, the HR teams, the L&D teams, other change agents within the organization, we begin to want to communicate the benefits of coaching, right? And we're going to cover those in detail in a moment. We're going to look at the resistance to coaching, and then we're going to look at some of the benefits of the coaching, which will help to overcome those challenges. Yeah. Either way is early on in the game, the HR, the L&D, the change agents want to begin to communicate the benefits of coaching. Right, then you normally need some kind of external support with training, right? So what do I mean by that is, an external trainer, such as Coachology, such as whoever you're working with at the moment. If you are already an existing coach or trainer, whoever it is, you need to begin to further communicate the benefits of coaching via a training program. So what do I mean by that is coaching alone will not create your coaching culture. We need to train and educate and give the teams tools on how to begin coaching at a more kind of mid-level of management. So for example, a 2-day coaching excellence workshop is a really, really powerful way to give some coaching tools to your leadership team so that they can start coaching inside of the organization. And so what do we call that? Is we call it creating raving fans. And what that looks like is as we start to coach people inside of the organization and those clients begin to have successes, they begin to have breakthroughs, they begin to be more productive or start solving their own problems, whatever that might be, well, then they become a raving fan of the coaching process. And as they have a good experience with coaching, then they're going to tell their subordinates and their colleagues and their team workers and other people in the organization, so that we begin to create an interest and a curiosity in the benefits of coaching. Right? Now, Another thing that happens as the CEO, the big boss, and whoever else begins to receive coaching, we find they begin to get better at delegation. And clearly that's an internal process. So oftentimes at the end of a coaching engagement, the leader or the executive will get much, much better at communication. They will get much, much better at their emotional control, in other words, their EQ. They will be more effective at delegating. And they will begin to actually coach their subordinates even more, thereby empowering their subordinates to new levels of success. In addition to delegation, there'll be mentoring, right? Again, coaching alone will not create the coaching culture. So in our experience, as those senior leaders receive coaching, they get better at mentoring as well. And we'll cover some of these definitions in a bit more detail as we go. Then the next step is you will have one or two of the more senior level also receive coaching from an external coach. And again, this is in the early days because you want to make sure that your teams have a good experience with receiving some leadership coaching. So that is often done by an external coach to start with. Then guys, what is most important though is that you begin to certify your internal coaches. And what do I mean by that is you will have some of your key people, whether it's HR, whether it's learning and development, whether it's some of your director level or senior management level, you want to get them certified as a professional coach. And there are many training programs available out there in the market. The reason why you want to do that is then, so as you see the purple line there that says coaching, once your internal people are certified, then they can start coaching internally. And what that means is you don't have to rely on the services of an external coach forever, right? Because that's going to cost a fair bit of money in the long run. So clearly at some point, it's going to be in your best interest in terms of an ROI to actually certify some of your key people as coaches, right? So that they can begin to start coaching people internally. Case in point, we finished delivering an internal coaching workshop for one of our key clients. It was our full NLP leadership and coaching certification program, which is a 5-day program followed by online group coaching. Internally, there were 27 people who went through that program and we delivered it in-house at that organization. 27 people were certified. And then they have now conducted more than 305 hours of internal coaching. And that equates to a value of 2 million Thai baht in money that they would have had to pay for an external coach. So by them 27 people being fully certified, they have now coached more than 300 hours, and that number is continuing to rise every day. Why? Because they're already certified. They're internationally certified coaches. So for a longer term ROI, you definitely want to get some internal people certified. Right, so this is the top-down approach. We'll cover some other methods on how to do it from the inside out a little bit later. But if you wanted to take a photo of that screen now, guys, then go ahead. I'll just give you 30 seconds to take a quick photo of that. Okay. Right, so let's take a look at the definition of coaching because there's a lot of confusion out there about what coaching is and what coaching is not. In fact, when I first came to Bangkok almost 10 years ago now, I would go to these networking events like at OzCham and such, and I'd be going up to people and say, oh, hi, my name is Luke and I'm a coach. Now, for those of you that don't know me yet, I'm about 2 meters tall. And so people would look me up and down and say, oh, you're a basketball coach. And I was like, well, not exactly. I'm an executive coach. So there was simply not an awareness of what coaching is and what coaching is not. So we need to kind of demystify what is coaching, especially when you begin to coach your subordinates or peers within your organization. So the first definition we have here, guys, is the ICF definition. The International Coaching Federation is the world's largest coaching authority. And this is their definition of what coaching is. Coaching is partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. Right? A couple of key words there is partnering with clients, right? So what does that mean is you could be the best coach in the world, and unless your client, whoever that client is going to meet you at least halfway, if not more, closer to your end, then the coaching conversation is going to be quite difficult and quite challenging. So it is a partnership, yeah? And we want to maximize their personal and professional potential. Now, that's a little bit of a wordy definition for me. So I like to work with things that are more simple. And for me, coaching is really about asking and listening and not telling people what to do. So it's more about asking and listening and not telling people what to do. So that's pretty much coaching 101 for me. So if you are telling your teams what to do, we're not coaching in that moment. And as I mentioned before, to create a coaching culture is more than just coaching. You do need to do training. You do need to do mentoring. Sometimes we do need to tell people what to do, but at its essence, coaching is not telling people what to do. It's about asking powerful questions, and it's about listening, and it's about helping our clients come up with the solutions themselves. Yeah. And there's a couple of really simple, powerful questions that we can begin to ask our subordinates, our teams, and our clients, so that you can actually begin to start coaching like this afternoon, directly after this call over here. So oftentimes your team, your staff, they're going to be running to you with problems. Boss, there's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem. What do I do? One of the most simple and most effective questions you can ask is simply, what do you think? What do you think we should do? And of course, in the beginning, in the early days, if we've been telling our teams what to do for the last however many years, then we're going to get some kind of resistance. They'll be saying things like, well, boss, you always tell me what to do. Why are you not telling me now? So you'll need to take little baby steps at the beginning if you're wanting to ask some of these coaching questions. Right? And then they're going to say things like, oh, I don't know. And then you say, okay, well, what could be one option, right? What could be one possible solution to that problem that you're facing at the moment? Then maybe the option they give you isn't very good. So then you could start by asking another question, which is, what could be another option? What could be one more option? And then that gets them to now begin to start thinking a little bit more about what could be another option. And again, in the early days, you are going to get resistance. It's not because people don't want to do it. It's just going to be a new leadership tool that you're going to be using. All right. So what that means is you're going to need to work step by step, nice and slowly with your teams to basically begin to integrate this coaching culture. Yeah, let's keep moving through some questions. I'm thanking you for some questions that are coming through now about how to use mentoring. We'll definitely come back to that towards the end of the call. What else? Oh, simple. 2 words. Such a powerful question you can ask your teams in your leadership role, or with your paying clients, or whoever it might be. What else? What else? What else? What's another option? What's another idea? What else? What else? What else? Now, in those early days, you are going to get a little bit of uncertainty, a little bit of resistance, and your teams are going to say, when you ask them some of these questions, what do you think, or what could be an option, or what could be a solution, they're going to say, I don't know. And this is a really simple, powerful question, and you simply respond to that by saying, I know you don't know, but if you did know. And at the beginning, you'll ask this question, and their face will go a little bit like, huh? And then you'll just ask it again, nice and patiently. I know you don't know, but if you did know, and with encouragement and being gentle with them, they will eventually begin to come up with some solutions on how to solve their own problems. And by the way, guys, this is what helped me to be able to, many years ago before coming to Bangkok, I worked in hospitality in Koh Samui. And I had an amazing general manager there. I was the front office manager at this hotel. And Mr. John, he was from Amsterdam, from the Netherlands, and he was my GM. And we needed to rebuild the staff canteen, right, where all of the hotel staff would eat their lunch. You would have the main restaurant for all of the guests, obviously, and then we would have a back of house kind of a restaurant area for the staff. And so Mr. John got all of the HODs together, all of the head of department, front office manager, housekeeping, head chef, etc., etc. And he gathered everyone together and he explained the purpose of the meeting. He said, guys, we're here today because I'd like your input on how to create the staff canteen. And so very slowly and very patiently, very calmly, Mr. John went through each one of us HODs and he said, what do you think we should do? And he would ask the questions and then he would listen intently and he would make notes and he would acknowledge the person for sharing and contributing. He'd say, wow, that's great. Thank you very much. And then he would move to the next person, the next HOD. And he would say, what do you think we should do? And he very patiently and very calmly made his way through the whole group, getting all of our suggestions on about how to rebuild this staff canteen. So that whole process took about 20 minutes. And, I was a bit kind of frustrated. I had a wedding to coordinate that day. We used to have, weddings on the beach in beautiful Koh Samui. And, I said, John, separately after the meeting finished, I said, why the big song and dance? I said, I'm sure you probably already have a plan about what the staff canteen should look like. Why did you do that? And he said, well, Luke, he said, if I tell them what to do, well, then they might reject or they might resist. And he said, if I tell them what to do, it's not their idea. They're not going to take ownership. They're not going to drive it forward. So he said, but by asking them what do they think that we should do, number one, they take ownership. Number two, they might even come up with better ideas than what I had myself. And number three, as they take ownership, they're going to drive that project forward and get it complete in half of the time. And so I was like, wow, that's amazing. And sure enough, because he invested his time, that 20 minutes in having that, which was essentially a coaching conversation, he didn't tell us what to do. He asked us what to do. I just became fascinated. And so I totally changed my leadership style. And as a result of that, there was another hotel advertising for a general manager position. I couldn't go anywhere. Mr. John was the GM of this hotel and I was kind of like his number two guy. So I said to Mr. John, I said, listen, I would like to apply for this GM job in this other hotel. He said, Luke, he said, you're ready. He said, let's sit down and we'll spruce up your CV, your resume. Let's make it really hot. And then he said, then let's do some role play. So, I'll be the interviewer interviewing you so we can prepare you for the interview for that job. And I was like, wow, is he the best boss ever? And he said to me, look, Luke, I'm going to miss you. There's no doubt about it. You're my right-hand guy. And he said, I want to see you grow. I want to see you grow to that next level. So it was really, really amazing to have that experience with Mr. John. He was actually a coach. He never called himself a coach. He didn't walk around, telling the world that he was a coach. He just actually used coaching in his leadership role, which was really, really powerful. Yeah. So from that, in 3 short months, I actually left that hotel. I got the GM position and I doubled my salary in 3 short months by simply asking some of these simple and powerful questions that we're listing here on the screen, guys. So what does that mean? It means that you can begin to apply these tools immediately into your leadership role. These are the kinds of questions that you can ask immediately to begin to get results with your teams, to empower them to think for themselves. That's going to help you grow and it's going to help you get promoted. And like in my example, I got promoted to GM and doubled my salary in 3 short months by following these very, very simple and effective coaching questions. Yeah, so let's go and take a look at a few more questions. What would your role model recommend? Yeah, so this is, again, is a really powerful question. When they say, oh, I don't know what to do, then you say, well, in this situation, this event, this whatever's going on right now, what would your role model recommend? And a role model is simply someone we look up to, right? It might be a previous boss, it might be a mother or a father, it might be a favorite uncle or auntie, someone that we look up to. And as you ask that question, they begin to shift their point of view regarding to the problem. And as they do that, they'll often get a new insight or a new idea or some potential solution that will help them to overcome that problem. What if it were easy? Oh, right. A lot of times people will, ramp up the intensity of the problem, especially if it's been a problem that they've held on to for quite some time. And it could be like a problem or a challenge or some area of their life where someone is procrastinating. And procrastinating is basically not taking action. So this is a really simple question to kind of begin to loosen up the frame that they have about the problem. What if it were easy? What if the solution was easy? And then again, if you're their boss, you could ask them, what would I recommend to you? Right? So they're there to ask you how to solve that problem. And then so you can simply say to them, well, if you were me, what would I tell you to do? Yeah, and that can be a really, again, a really effective way to be able to get them to solve their own problems. Finally, okay, one second, guys, as I just work out how to mute this one a bit, please. Oh, that's better. Sorry about that. So as you can see there, guys, there's a lot of really simple, easy, and effective questions that you can begin to ask immediately with your clients. And by the way, those of you with children or those of you with a significant other, these are some simple questions you can begin to get your children to think for themselves and come up with their own solutions. So I'll bring that slide back up and you can take a quick photo of that one if you want. They're pretty easy though, right? These questions, guys. So go ahead there and take a quick look at those. And then now I want to move on to another slide, which is kind of like what I like to think of as the leadership development matrix. In other words, how can we develop ourselves as a leader? So we can either focus on the problem or the solution. Most people, a lot of the times these days, are focusing more on the problem than the solution. And we can either tell people what to do or we can ask them questions. And I would say, I don't have an official survey for this, but I would say most leaders are telling their teams what to do about 80% of the time. And this is based on the hundreds of companies I've worked with all throughout Asia, delivering workshops and leadership trainings for the last 10 years now. I would say on average that as leaders, 80% of leaders are simply telling people what to do, with probably more of a focus on the problem area, on how to solve the problem. Now, traditionally in that bottom corner there, where we're talking, we're focusing on the problem and we're telling people what to do, that will be like a consulting or a training. If we're focusing on the problem but asking more questions, then that could be a therapy environment or a facilitation environment. When we want to focus on the solution, and I want you to think of mentoring as kind of like holding the hand of the person that you're working with, and you're kind of sharing some best practices. You're sharing with them a strategy or a recipe on how to achieve mastery in a specific area. So what do we mean by that is on your leadership journey, you've probably had many mentors over the years. And you might have a mentor who teaches you about accounting, for example. You might have a mentor who can share with you skills on marketing, for example. You might have a mentor who gives you specifics about, managing your EQ or developing amazing relationships or whatever that might be. mentoring is great because you're focusing on the solution and you're kind of guiding them step by step on how to accelerate their development. And then finally, we have coaching, which is asking questions and definitely focusing on the solution. Now, again, based on the hundreds of clients and companies that I've worked with over the years, I would say that about leaders are using coaching as a development tool about 1% of the time, right? Which isn't much. And as we mentioned before, guys, to create a coaching culture, it's not just coaching. We need to do coaching, mentor, training, and sometimes we do need to actually tell people what to do. So, for example, if the building was suddenly on fire and the staff came running to me, boss, the building is on fire, I'm not going to say to them, what do you think we should do? Right? I'm going to tell them very quickly and very directly exactly what they need to do. And as we're only using coaching 1% as a leadership development tool right now, I think a good goal for us to have would be to begin to use coaching about 10% of the time. Right? Remember, you'll need to recondition your teams. If you've not been coaching and you suddenly want to make the shift to coaching, 10, 15, 20% of the time, that's going to be a big shift in your communication style with your existing teams. So you want to do it step by step. You want to do it gradually, because if it's too radical a change in your leadership style, then that might create more confusion or more uncertainty. Now, remember, your role as a leader or a coach is to create certainty in uncertain times. And I've been on this planet for about 46 years now. I haven't seen the level of uncertainty that's happening out there right now at this moment in time. So your job as a leader, your job as a human, your job as a coach is to help create certainty in these uncertain times. That's one of the best value adds you can give to the people that you care about in your life right now. I'm talking about your family, your friends, and your co-workers, to be able to provide a level of certainty in these uncertain times. People are going to remember that, and it's certainly going to support you on your journey through this lifetime. So I hope that makes sense. I saw that there were a couple of questions popping up just now. Let me just quickly check if there's any question. Academic supports my statement, 80%. Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you, Volkmar. I thought someone in the group might know those numbers. So remember though, guys, you need to make that shift a little bit gradually. If you suddenly start trying to coach everyone all the time in every area, then you're going to get kickback. You're going to get some resistance, and that's not going to be so helpful in the longer term. So you can definitely start by asking some of those more simple and powerful questions in the beginning to get people to think for themselves, right? As you do so, you're empowering them to come up with their own solutions. And as you do that, they are going to grow. That thereby creates greater productivity, greater empowerment, and then people are going to be able to solve their own problems. That is going to create greater loyalty, right? Because like Mr. John, how Mr. John helped me with my CV and we did the role play together, that was such a genuine act of kindness for my personal development, right? Knowing that he was going to suffer in the short term because he had to find a replacement who didn't know the hotel property. I'd been there for 6 years. So he sacrificed that in the short term, knowing that it would help me. Wow, what a great leader, what a great mentor, what a great coach. And that's the kind of coach that I would invite you to be, that you help others maximize their personal and their professional potential. Yeah? Cool. So I think we have a few more slides. Let's keep going. Right, so let's take a look, guys, at some of the main resistance to coaching that you will experience out there. This resistance is between my business partner and my wife, Coach Christy. Between us, we have more than 10,000 hours coaching experience at every kind of level, from executive to life, from children to grandparents, business to you name it. And so with those hours of experience, this is what we have experienced to be the main resistance to coaching. And it's good to be aware of this because it will come up, right? It'll come up from your clients, whether they be a paid client, a pro bono client, or a team member. This is what you're going to experience out there. So the first one is lack of awareness to what coaching is and the benefits of coaching. So like I mentioned in my little story before, I was introducing myself. Hi, my name's Luke. I'm a coach. Basketball coach, football coach, cricket coach, badminton coach? No, executive coach. So there's just there's a lack of awareness about what coaching is. And to be honest, that's part of the reason why I run these webinars and workshops, is to help educate the benefits of coaching, right? And as we understand the benefits of coaching, we can overcome the resistance to coaching. And most people, they simply don't know what it is. And of course, what people don't know that they don't know, it is unfamiliar for them. Therefore, it's outside of their comfort zone. Remember, comfort zone is what is familiar. Anything new is unfamiliar. Therefore, there'll be a level of being uncomfortable. And so, you know, our job as a coach is to help people to be comfortable with being in that kind of unknown area, in the unfamiliar territory. And by sharing with them what the benefits of coaching are, this is a really good way to ease people into the process of coaching and what it's all about. Oh, this is a big one, guys. So especially in organizations, right, where we're looking to incorporate a coaching culture inside of an organization. If I need coaching, there must be something wrong with me, right? If I need coaching, there must be something wrong with me. So there's two ways typically that this conversation can be had with employees in the organization that they are about to experience a coaching conversation. So the first way, which is the way that most people do it, it might sound something like this. Okay, Somchai, your performance this last quarter or so was not very good. And I have arranged for you to meet with a coach. You're going to meet this coach tomorrow at 12 o'clock, and you're going to meet them, and you are going to be coached, and we're going to fix this problem. Okay? So I expect you to participate fully in that coaching conversation. How do you think that will work? Yeah, probably not very good, right? And you could be the best coach in the world. You could be Dr. Marshall Goldsmith or Tony Robbins or whoever. If you have an employee that's just been delivered that message in that way, that coaching conversation is going to be lose, lose, lose. What do I mean by that? It's going to be a lose for the client, right? Because they're just going to resist the whole process and then therefore not get the learnings or the breakthroughs or the awareness. It's going to be a lose for the company who's paid the money for them to have that coaching session. And it's going to be a lose for the actual coach as well, right? Because they're not going to be able to get results, even if they've had 20,000 hours of coaching experience. So the way we want to deliver this kind of message to our teams will be a little bit different. And it might sound something like this. Somchai, I have an idea for your future. I see the potential in you, and I can see that I would like you to grow with inside of the organization. And one way to help accelerate your leadership journey here at the company is through a process called coaching. Now, coaching is a partnership where you and the coach will clearly identify the kind of goals that you would like to achieve here in the organization, identify any obstacles that might slow you down, and then to co-create an action plan together on how you can achieve that next level of success. Is that something that you would be interested in? 98% of people will go, yeah, sure, that sounds great. Then you would explain it a little bit further. So tomorrow at 12 o'clock, I'd like to set up a chemistry session with you and your potential coach. It's an opportunity for you to build trust with your coach, to see that there is alignment, and to share those goals with your coach to see if this could be a good partnership with you and your coach. Is that something that you would be interested in? Again, 98 or 99% of people will say, yeah, wow, thanks, boss. That sounds great. So then by having that kind of conversation, well, that is going to really, really help the success of the coaching conversation, right? And then you'll explain it. You might need to educate them a little bit more about the benefits of coaching, what coaching is not. And as you explain that to your somchai, to your whoever else it is, then that's going to create an open-mindedness. It's going to create a curiosity where when they do turn up for that chemistry session, they're going to be a lot more engaged. They're going to be a lot more open to the process. And then chances are it will be a high level of success from that coaching engagement. Make sense? Cool. Number 3, we're still on the resistance to coaching, guys. Number 3 is ego. So that shows up in a few different ways. It might sound like, well, there's nothing wrong with me. It's my 20 subordinates. They're the ones with the attitude problem. Or it might sound like, yeah, I've already done all of these training courses. I don't need coaching. It won't work for me. And many other ways. With the short 1.5 hours that we have together today, I think that we can't fully unpack how to deal with ego. All I can tell you is if someone is presenting ego in a coaching conversation, you need to find out what is important for them. Because remember, someone with a high ego, the world and the universe revolves around them. So you need to dig a little deeper and find out what is most important for them. And that might be getting promoted, whatever it is for them. You need to find out what it is and then begin to work on that, right? Not what their boss sent you in to coach them about, but really connect with them as a human and then find out what are their motivation strategies, what motivates them, what inspires them, and then help them in those areas. Excellent. More resistance that you might get is bad. The client may have had a bad experience with a less experienced coach, a couple of years ago. So what does that look like is, they may have had a bad experience and they'll say things like, yeah, coaching, I don't think it's going to work for me. I tried that a couple of years ago and it didn't work. So yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. So you would need to address that by saying something like, well, I acknowledge that you had an experience many years ago and it didn't really work. Please rest assured this will be different, right? Some of the benefits of coaching include, what we're going to cover those in detail in a moment, guys, what those benefits of coaching are. And, we're going to focus on your goal, what you want to achieve, and please, is this something that you would like to explore? Maybe 95% of people would say, okay, all right, well, I'll give it a shot, especially if you explain it as that the first meeting is going to be a chemistry session. So let me explain a little bit there, guys, what a chemistry session is. This is more for the paid coaches on the call, or if your goal is to become a paid coach at some point in the future. Oftentimes, even if you are the highest level of coaching credential, you will need to meet your potential client for often what we call a free chemistry session. And during the chemistry session, your job as the coach is to get really clear on what is the outcome for your potential client. What is it that they want to achieve? And this is especially true if a company is sponsoring the client. So here's the client, here's the company sponsoring that coaching conversation with you as the coach. You still need to conduct those chemistry sessions. Number one, you're building trust. And remember, your client will only open up to you if there's a high level of trust, which means no ego, your own ego, you need to check outside of the door. You need to be curious. You need to be humble. You need to know that the client is creative, whole, and resourceful. They have everything within them to solve their own challenges and to achieve their own goals. Now, in that chemistry session, yes, you're building trust. You're going to get clear on their outcomes, what potentially has been preventing them in the past to achieve that next level of success. And as the coach, you are also assessing coachability of this client or this potential client. What do I mean by coachability is, remember, coaching is a partnership. So we say that the client has to meet you at least halfway, if not 3/4 of the way there. If they don't meet you there, if you have to go over to, meet them and kind of drag them kicking and screaming into the coaching conversation, it's going to be really tough for everyone involved. So during that chemistry session, whether they're sponsored by their company or it's another client that you found wherever, then you really need to make sure that you assess their coachability, right? And Dr. Marshall Goldsmith explains that very well in his couple of his books, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Also, Triggers, beautiful book on executive coaching and leadership coaching. So you need to assess that coachability. Why? Because you want to make sure that that coaching conversation is a success. Yeah? So, moving on. Next one is, and again, guys, this is in terms of, coaching inside of the organization to create that coaching culture, is we don't have time to coach, right? So this is going to be one of the biggest ones that you're going to need to overcome. So let's begin to look at some ways, some of the benefits that we can look at to overcome these obstacles, to overcome the resistance to coaching. Right, so one of the very, very first ones, guys, and this links back to the story that I just told you about Mr. John when I was working in hotel world. Coaching is an ROI of your time. So I want you to think about this as the perspective. If you are a leader inside of an organization and you're starting to incorporate a coaching practice into your leadership role, or you might be facilitating other leaders within your organization to adopt a coaching kind of mindset in terms of helping their teams grow. Most of the time they'll say, oh, boss, we don't have time to coach. I don't have time to sit down for 1 hour and coach all of my subordinates. So we need to help them to understand that coaching is an ROI of your time, right, as a leader. So, for example, if I go back to that little story I told about Mr. John, yes, Mr. John invested 20 minutes in that conversation with his HODs, asking everyone, what do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? That was an investment in his time of 20 minutes. Yes, he could have written up his own construction plan and given that to the engineer and the head chef and say, okay, guys, get on with the job. But then you're telling people what to do, right? So by him investing that 20 minutes, number one, the team were included in the process. They shared some really great ideas, but more importantly, they took ownership and they drove that project forward. So what would normally take this long to get that new staff canteen built, it took half as much time. And Mr. John did not have to go back and check with them twice a day to say, how's it going, guys? How's it going, guys? How's it going, guys? Why? Because the teams were motivated. They were inspired. They had the buy-in to the project. And so they were able to get it done in a much, much shorter period of time. And they also said things like, when the staff canteen was built, those HODs, they were proud. And they would say to their subordinates or other team members, we helped design this. We did that together, right? So that's what I mean by that, taking that ownership and being really proud of that, right? So you need to wrap that up in your own story, right? Like if you're trying to, share the benefits of how coaching is an ROI of your time, use a story like that, or share your own experience where that investment of time, that 20 minutes by Mr. John actually saved him hours and if not days on that project completion, right? And it's the same when your staff come running to you with a problem. We think it's quicker and easier to tell them what to do. And while that's true in certain aspects, you just tell them what to do, that's 30 seconds. But guess what? If you've got a team of 20 and they're coming at you, 10 of 20 times a day, each with their own problem, then you're going to be very busy telling them what to do. So at the appropriate times, when you open up and have those coaching conversations by flipping it around and say, well, what do you think we should do? Then that becomes a very powerful way to empower them to think for themselves, right? Now, you'll need to condition them with your new leadership style. They're going to come back again, boss, I have the problem. You're going to ask them the questions. What do you think you should do? What's another option? What could be one solution? If you were me, what would I tell you to do? And then after 3 or 4 times, what's going to happen is that subordinate of yours, they're going to have a problem and they're going to go, oh, you know what, if I go to the boss and I say, boss, they're going to say, oh, what do you think you should do? So guess what? Now you've empowered them. Now they're beginning to solve their own problems. And if you do that across your team, that investment in those 10, 15, 20-minute coaching conversations, your ROI on that investment of time is going to be huge, right? You are going to save hours and days of your time in the long run. And of course, what you're doing is you're empowering them to solve their own problems. You're empowering them to be better leaders, to be better supervisors or whatever they are in the organization. And as you help them grow, of course, that's going to make you grow as well. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So what I'd like to share with you now, guys, wow, we're already an hour in. What I'd like to share with you is how to flip a problem to a solution. This is a really powerful coaching technique. It's really important to help get your clients, whoever they are, paid client or subordinate, to not focus on the problem. What we want to do is, and we're not talking about burying our head in the sand here. We're not talking about being ignorant about certain things. Is we need to identify what the problem is, but then as quickly as possible, we need to begin to focus on a potential solution to the problem, right? So let's go through here and I'll walk you through this. It doesn't look like we're going to have time to do it as a practice session, but I'll wrap it up in a story, guys, so it can help make sense. Hello? Whoa, I have lost my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you still hear me, guys?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so let me talk you through this coaching tool. Really simple, really powerful, and you can do this with anyone, right? So we follow this 3-step process, remembering that coaching is about asking and listening, not telling people what to do. So this is a really good way to begin to flex your coaching muscle. Step number 1 is to clearly identify the problem or the challenge. Oftentimes, by your client being able to clearly articulate what the problem is, they've already begun to solve it, right? Oftentimes, the problem and the challenge is taking up so much bandwidth in our mind that we're unable to see the solution because we keep focusing on the problem. Yeah, so what we want to do first is clearly identify the problem or the challenge, right? You don't want to take too much time on this when you're working with your client, and you need to take as much time as you need to take to get clear on the problem. Now, people often out there in the real world, they like to talk about their problems, and they're going to talk about their problem. They're going to talk a lot about the problem, and that might go on for 10 or 15 minutes. One way that you can help them articulate their problem is by saying to them, let's assume they've shared for 10 or 15 minutes. You say, great, thank you for sharing. So how would you summarize that problem in 1 sentence? Right? So this is a really powerful coaching question, is how can you summarize that problem in 1 sentence? Yeah. Now, it's okay to let them vent a little bit first and kind of get clarity as they're talking around it. You'll ask some questions to clarify and verify exactly what the problem is as well. You don't need to go into the hyper detail. We're not looking at that. We're just looking at a basic understanding of what the problem or the challenge is. For example, I was facilitating this as a group session, by the way. So this tool that you're using here, you can do this for one-on-one. You can do it with your subordinates. You can do it in groups as well. So I was working with a hotel chain down in Phuket, and the problem was that they did not have enough manpower. In other words, they were understaffed, right? And I said, okay, great. What's the head count of the staff that you have at the moment? And they said 95. And I said, okay. So I understood what the problem was. Clear. Then we moved to step 2. Define the preferred outcome, the achievement of which the challenge ceases to exist. Right? So I know that sounds like a bit of a mouthful. What we're saying is if this is the problem, what goal do we need to achieve, the achievement of which the challenge ceases to exist? In other words, the challenge just goes away. And so what you're doing here with your client is you're shifting their focus from problem towards the solution. Now, I was explaining this to the group and they were kind of like, huh? So another way you can say this, and I'm sharing this language with you here on step 2 so you can understand it from a coaching perspective. In reality, you might simplify the language and say something like, what would you like to achieve instead? What would your outcome be instead? Right? So with this group of hotel, the way that I asked the question was, how many staff would you need to have to not be understaffed anymore? What would the total headcount of staff need to be? And they kind of discussed together and they came up with the number 100. Right? So then what you need to get them to do, guys, in step number 2 here, you want to articulate that outcome as much as possible as a SMART goal. Right? So they chose the goal. We have 100 highly motivated employees or associates, what they call them. We now have 100 highly motivated associates by the 31st of August 2019. Right? For example. Yeah, so this is the way that you actually need to take the problem, identify the preferred outcome, the achievement of which the problem ceases to exist. In that example, they identified that they need 100 staff that would enable them to efficiently run the hotel by the 31st of August. Yeah. Then, and this is the key part, guys, and step number 3 here, this can be done in any coaching conversation that you have. Procrastination is what stops people in their tracks. And so what we want to do is help people to take the very next physical action. So as the kids' joke goes, guys, how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. Little bite here and a little bite there. And the same is with your goal. Any goal that you want to achieve or any goal that your client wants to achieve, it's simply a series of step-by-step actions that help you to achieve that outcome that you want to achieve. Most people get stuck on achieving their goals because that next kind of action step, it becomes too big. And as a result, it's still too big. And so it kind of lingers in this area of procrastination and not doing it because we over complicate it in our mind. So what we're looking for here, guys, is the very next physical action. All right? Now, in example, when working with this group, I think what they decided, the very next physical action was to schedule a meeting with all of those involved to identify the clear job descriptions of the people that they needed in the hotel, right? So how do I say that even more simply? Schedule the meeting with all involved. HR, the department heads, schedule the meeting, put it in a calendar, send out the invitation. That's the very next physical step, because you can't advertise for a job but we don't know what the clear job description is. We can't get budget approval from the GM or the big boss until we clearly know the positions that we need to fill. Yeah. So this is a really good tool for yourselves as well, guys. Whenever you feel stuck, right? Identify the problem or the challenge. What's the outcome that you'd like to achieve instead? The achievement of which this problem ceases to exist. And then very next physical action. Practice it with yourself. Practice it with your friends and family and subordinates. Practice it with your paying clients. Really, really simple and effective tool, which you can also use some of those simple questions that we learned at the beginning of the session. Yeah? Yeah, very next step. So let's take a look at some of these other benefits for coaching your teams. You're going to empower your teams. As you're helping them to solve their own problems, that is going to empower them. They're going to feel good and they're going to begin to solve their own problems. You'll have improved delegation and succession planning. So as you think about growing your team, as you close that gap between where you are and where they are, well, now it's more likely that you are going to be promoted to the next level. It's going to be likely that you are going to be seen to, be very effective in the way that you lead and manage your teams. So coaching is, coaching can be really used very, very well in any kind of delegation process. Remember, delegation is not dumping, right? We're not dumping those tasks onto our subordinates. We're painting a clear picture of what the expectation is, and then we're checking in with them, regularly to see if they need support, if they have any questions, and so on, right? So that might be an example where you do a little bit of mentoring and then you do a little bit of coaching as well. Mentoring into show them some of the step-by-step things that they need to do in this new task that you've delegated, this new project that you're starting to initiate, and asking some of those questions. So what do you think would be a good solution for that challenge that you're facing? Yeah. So either way, coaching will help you to delegate more effectively, plan for your own succession, because then the only way is up. Now, as you are creating this amazing environment by coaching your teams, by mentoring your teams, by delegating effectively, that is going to create greater loyalty and greater teamwork. So most people leave an organization. The top two reasons are lack of opportunity for growth. In other words, their current boss doesn't show them a clear path where they can grow themselves, and a lack of appreciation or recognition. Yeah. Oftentimes people will tell me, people leave because of a shitty boss or a bad boss. Yes, that's true. And what is it that makes them a bad boss is the fact that they're not showing their teams an opportunity for growth, and they're not acknowledging them. They're not, showing the recognition that people deserve. And well, by coaching your teams, you are showing them that that they are worth an investment of your time, right? So that shows clearly great appreciation and recognition. And as you're coaching them, it's showing that you want them to grow. So by you investing the time to coach your teams, you're addressing the two main reasons why people leave an organization, thereby creating greater loyalty and greater teamwork. You can remove and learn from negative emotion. So last time I checked, our staff are not robots, and so they're human beings who still bring emotional stuff to work from time to time. This is a classic example of what's happening in the world right now. There's so much uncertainty out there. People's, jobs may really be affected. That's going to create some kind of negative emotion or negative thinking. So your ability as an effective leader to use coaching tools and techniques to overcome that anxiety, that fear, those negative emotions in the moment will make you a much more productive and effective leader. Think about it this way: if your teams are all, having this anxiety and this fear and this negative emotion, clearly their productivity is going to be affected. So you want to, again, invest that time to coach them, to lead them, to create the certainty in these uncertain times, so that they can be more resourceful, more resilient, and therefore be more productive and do the work that needs doing. And of course, you're going to develop your own skills as a leader, guys. So let's move through these ones a little bit more quickly here. There are 4 tips to be an awesome coach. You want to be in a peak state. What do we mean by that? State means emotional state, and peak means kind of like a high energy. In other words, it's to be totally present. That's what's going to make you an awesome coach. Whether it is a leader or a business owner, or you're coaching your kids or whatever it is simply be present as you can. Tip number 2 is no judgment. So in the coaching world, we say that you are a blank piece of paper. So by blank piece of paper, it means you don't judge, you don't impose, you do not tell people what to do, and certainly no judgment, right? Remember, when you're working with especially real clients or given what's happening in the environment right now, people are vulnerable, people are scared, people have fear. And so you want to be humble, right? You want to be present, and you don't want to impose any judgment onto your client, because otherwise they're just going to close down, right? So the more rapport you have, rapport means trust and connection. The more rapport you have, the more open people are going to be to open up, right? And so we don't want to get into, judging people. We don't want to get into, any of those kinds of things, because otherwise they're just going to shut down. They're going to close down. Yeah. Tip number 3. Tip number 3 is active listening. So it's really about listen, listen, listen. We need to listen as much as we can. We call that active listening. We're not just talking about the words here. We're also talking about the body language and everything like that as well. And then finally, focus on getting results by using powerful questions. So again, guys, these 4 tips you can start to apply immediately with some of the things we've already covered today. This is going to take your leadership from wherever it is up to that next level. So this is what we mean by emotional state or peak state. Why is it important to be in a high energy state? Is because our state is linked to our behavior. So this is from the world of NLP. This is the NLP model of communication. It basically explains the mechanics of thinking and emotions and all of that cool stuff. Our behavior is simply what we do. Our behavior is our actions. And our actions, of course, create our results. So what this model tells us is that our emotional state, the way that we feel moment to moment, is linked to the results that we achieve in our life. There's a direct comparison. In other words, if we feel a bit blah, right, our energy is down, we don't feel motivated, then the results that we achieve in our life correspond to that lower energetic state. So to be a more effective leader, to be an awesome coach, is to be able to manage our own emotional state so that you have what we call that peak emotional state. As you do so, you are more present and you're able to serve your client to the highest level. Please remember that every one of your clients, whether they're a paid client or a subordinate or a peer or whatever, everyone is different. Everyone has a different program. And so when you're coaching people, and the more people that you coach, you're going to realize that everyone is different. So when you are meeting your client, it's up to you to adapt to the communication style of your client, not the other way around, right? So yes, to have an engaged coaching session, your client needs to meet you halfway. Having said that, you need to adapt your communication style to the way that they prefer to communicate. What's their map of the world? What are their limitations, or what is it that's holding them back? You as the coach want to understand that. And you will be better able to serve your clients by being in a more positive, more empowered emotional state yourself. Right? As you do so, you basically give them permission to do the same. So by you being in that elevated state, you're basically inviting your client to come up to that elevated emotional state as well. So that's what we mean by peak state, guys. Number 2 is no judgment and build rapport. So what is rapport? It's the feeling of trust and connection. Without rapport, you will not be an effective coach. Why? Because people simply won't open up to you. So this is why we keep reminding, as the coach, you've got to check your ego outside the door. You want to be humble. You want to be curious. You want to be open-minded. This is going to be the best way you'll get results for your clients. One of the tools to build more rapport is what we call matching and mirroring. Again, this is a tool out of NLP. And very simply, guys, matching and mirroring is very simple, is when people are like each other, they tend to like each other, right? So what do we mean by that is find something in common, right? A favorite football team, you have kids, I have kids, places you went on holiday, find something in common. Communicate in the way that they prefer to be communicated with. Some people are really big picture. Some people are really detailed. Some people are more extrovert. Other people are more introvert. Whatever it is, there's no right or wrong or good or bad. It's simply your job to communicate, to be like the other person, because that will create more trust and more openness, and that's what's going to help you get results for your clients. Active listening, really, really simple, guys. For active listening, you're simply going to repeat back whatever the client said. So for example, if I understand correctly, you'd like to be a professional coach by the 25th of July. Is that correct? All right. So whatever it is that your client says, from time to time in that coaching conversation, you simply repeat back what you understood from what they shared. Now, only two things can happen, and either way is awesome. Number one, they go, yes, that's right, which builds more rapport. Anytime your client is doing this action with their head, that's a sign of good rapport. And it shows that you're listening to them. It shows that you're hearing what it is that they're saying. So your rapport just deepens and deepens and deepens. Now, if they don't say yes, they'll simply say something like, what I meant to say was, da, 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 da. And then they will clarify the words that they just shared to create a deeper meaning and to create understanding between the coach and the client. And of course, that's a good thing as well. Oftentimes people communicate at the surface level, right? They rarely go deep. So when you repeat back what you understood and they say, no, what I meant to say was, what they're doing now is they're coming deeper. Your coaching conversation has just gone deeper. And that's a good thing for you and it's a good thing for the client. Yes? And then finally, powerful questions. Yeah? So powerful questions help your client change perspective. Powerful questions are like yoga for the mind. So we all know that yoga is good for flexibility in the body. Well, guess what? Powerful questions help your client shift their point of view or their perspective about the problem. You see, the problem is rarely the problem. It is our thinking about the problem that is the problem. So in other words, often people have very rigid thinking, a very fixed way when they're looking at that problem. So by you as the coach, as the awesome leader, as you ask these powerful questions, what you're doing is you're inviting the client to look from a different point of view at that problem, right? For example, if this is the point of view and I'm looking at the problem, here is the problem. That's my point of view. The solution to that problem is where? Well, the solution to that problem is from a different point of view. We don't know as the coach, is it here? Is it here? Is it here? We don't know. And it's not your job to know as the coach. You don't need to know. You don't need to be the expert in the client's problem or drama, the thing that's going on in their life. By you asking them these powerful questions, you're inviting them to shift perspective to find a different point of view and to find the potential solution to that problem. So that's what we mean. Powerful questions are like yoga for the mind. With each powerful question, your client discovers more about themselves and the situation. Now remember to pace and lead. What do we mean by pace and lead is sometimes your clients are an open book. Within 10 minutes, you're going into the deep stuff. They're totally open, totally vulnerable to what's going on. Whereas another client, it might take you 2 or 3 or 4 sessions and you very gently and very slowly peel back the layers to get down to the root cause of the problem, to get to what's really going on. So your job as the coach is to move at the same pace as the client. If you go too quickly, if you push them too hard, they're going to reject, they're going to resist, and you will break rapport. Right? Then it's going to be really tough for you to re-establish rapport to get them to that place where they can trust you and open up again. Cool. So how are we going for time, guys? Oh, okay. So let me tell this as a story, guys, very, very quickly. So reframing is a bit more of an advanced coaching tool, using powerful questions to help people get unstuck from negative thinking or negative emotion. What I'm going to do, guys, is we've got the full process here. You can take a photo now if you want, would be a good time. Let me tell you as a story on how I used this process for myself. Many years ago when I was in Australia, as you could probably tell by my accent, I was working in the manufacturing industry. I got called into the office on a Friday afternoon and I was told, Luke, today is your last day, you're fired. So my negative thinking and my negative emotion was a 10 out of 10, maybe even higher. And so then you can ask yourself these powerful coaching questions to reduce the negative thinking and the negative emotion about any event or situation. You see, we cannot change the event. Shit happens. Life happens. COVID is happening. We can't control the event. What we can do is control our thinking about the event, about the situation that's going on at the moment. So this is really powerful for an event that's happened in the past, or it can also be very powerful for something that's happening right here in the moment. So the first question you can ask yourself, and by the way, this is a self-coaching tool that you can use like daily. I use this multiple times per day. And it's a very, very powerful coaching question for your teams, your subordinates, your peers, or your paying clients. Either way, it's a really, really powerful coaching tool. So remember, the event itself is actually not good or bad. The event is neutral. What determines how we think and feel about the event is our point of view about that event. So what we need to do is, because we can't, when we're having negative thoughts, we can't just say, oh, come on, just be happy. Come on, stop that. Just be happy. We know that doesn't work. Yeah. So the way we convert or transform negative emotion and negative thinking is to find the empowered learning from that event, right? So we can't change the event. What we can do is change the meaning that we create by getting the lessons from that event. And these 4 questions here are basically a way to help us discover what those learnings are about that event or situation to which we're holding on to the negative thinking and negative emotion. So the first question to ask is, what was good about that? Nothing was good about that. And if your client says that, you say, cool. Then you move on to question number 2 and you say, what could be good about that event? So now you've asked a different question, which is giving you a different point of view now. What could be good about that event? So here's the event, Luke getting fired from the job. What could be good about that? Well, the truth is I wanted to resign 6 months ago and they've just made the decision for me. Now I'm free. Now remember here, the what else question. This is a really good time to ask the what else question, right? What else could be good about that event? Well, what else could be good? Well, because they kicked me out on the day right then and right there, they had to pay me $3,000 severance pay. Yeah, that could be good. What else could be good about that? Well, I was planning to go to America for 5 weeks. Maybe now I can do a 1-year around the world backpacking adventure. Yeah, right? What else could be good? What else could be good? What else could be good? And you keep going. Right? You keep going and you get as many lessons and learnings about that event as possible. Then when you come up with no more, you move to the third question. What did you learn from that event? Well, in my example, what did I learn was I need to be passionate about my work. And if I'm not passionate, it doesn't fulfill me anymore, right? What else can you learn from that? What else can you learn from that? Well, what else could I learn? Next time I would take action. I wouldn't wait till I got fired. I would actually take some action. What else? And then finally, what would you do differently next time? Well, next time, what would I do differently? I would take action. I wouldn't wait for the universe to kick me in the ass. I would actually take action, which is exactly what I did in hotel world. I was down in Samui for 10 years. I started to feel unfulfilled. I thought, this has happened to me before. No, I'm going to take action this time. And I decided to become a professional coach and trainer and moved up here to Bangkok to start my business and to start my journey. So the event is the same. Over here was, 10 out of 10 negative thinking and emotion. Now, holy cow, I look back at that event. It was the best thing that could have happened to me, right? So remember, guys, you can do this on an event that happened in the past or something that's happening right here in the moment. Practice it with yourself first, where you still feel that you're holding on to some negative emotion or negative thinking about an event, and then go through this process, yeah? And then you've got the full script there if you want to practice this with a friend or a colleague or a client first. Cool, cool? Awesome, guys. So look, let's wrap this up. Yeah, if you need to go back to work and do other stuff, then we've got 5 more minutes. If you need to log off, that's fine, no problem. I'm going to wrap this up really, really quickly now. So 6 steps to creating a coaching culture. Start at the top. Enlist coaching ambassadors. What do I mean by that? Is to create raving fans inside of the organization. Certify key members as coaches. This is kind of summarizing what we spoke about earlier on in the session, guys. Schedule short, powerful sessions. So we don't have 60 minutes to do leadership coaching, right? So schedule them as 20-minute coaching conversations. Coaching for effective delegation, as we mentioned already, and a coaching culture toolkit. So let's take a look really quickly. Starting at the top. I mean, I think this is all pretty obvious here, guys. Why do we start at the top? We lead by example. And remember, starting at the top is the CEO, the MD, the department head is seen to be receiving some form of coaching, right? So clearly that's leading by example. It shows the team that there's always room for improvement, no matter how senior I am, that I'm willing to walk the talk, that it's worth the investment of time to be coached. Through the process, bosses will be more humble, more disciplined, and more courageous. And this is according to Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who's probably the world's foremost expert on executive coaching. It illustrates that no one is perfect and we all have scope for improvement and growth. And of course, we hope to see actual measurable improvements in the behavior and performance of the big boss. Yeah, enlist coaching ambassadors. So in other words, you want to have people to get results, right? You want to have people to get results. And as those people inside of the organization are having successful coaching conversations, they're being coached by their boss or an external coach or whatever. As they're getting results, as they're overcoming problems and challenges, as they're getting promoted, as they're managing their EQ more effectively, they're going to tell people within the organization. And as they begin to tell people in the organization, they are an ambassador. They're a raving fan of the coaching process. So it's not just coming from the top, you're creating it from the inside out. And this is a really powerful way to get buy-in to create that coaching culture. Certified key members. So again, we work with many, many companies throughout the region now where we're beginning to certify people inside of companies to become professionally accredited international coaches because that's going to be their best ROI, right? Meaning that they don't need an external coach all the time. They have, like the company that I mentioned before, 27 internal coaches who have now coached more than 300 hours inside of their organization. And guys, we're talking an ROI here of 40 million Thai baht. Huge, huge results with that organization. And that's that organization right there, 27 certified NLP coaches applying what they learned in their organization. Now, some of you may be curious about what's the difference between ICF coaching and NLP coaching. So very, very quickly, guys, ICF coaches will work with the client from the present moment into the future, right? And as per the ICF Code of Ethics, an ICF coach will not work on removing heavy blockages such as trauma or limiting belief and negative emotion from the past. So that's what we call an ICF coach. An NLP coach has tools to help the client both in the past and in the future as well. And so NLP is really good for removing some of those negative emotions, those negative thoughts, reprogramming the subconscious mind, that 95% of where our behavior comes from. NLP allows us to go a lot deeper into, basically reprogramming the mindset for success. Really, really important in the times that we're facing at the moment. So typically the people that do get certified as a coach are HR, L&D, leaders, executive, business owners, etc. And you want to schedule short, powerful sessions. This is the best way to overcome resistance to coaching. Or it takes too long. 20 minutes max, right? Maybe once a quarter or you know, 2 or 3 times a year, you can have a full sit down with your staff and have a one-on-one. Otherwise, just get into the habit of doing short, sharp, punchy sessions, you know, once every 2, 3 or 4 weeks. Coaching for effective delegation, we spoke about that already. Transformation toolkit. This is what we offer to companies. I don't want to dwell on that though. I want to show you this one, guys. This is the last slide for today. So we mentioned about creating a coaching culture from the top down. That's the ideal situation in a perfect world. We know that it's not always possible. So who can you start with? You can start with yourself. Whatever role you are within the organization, whether you're a startup, whether you're just working with you and your partner, you can get yourself certified first. Why? Because then you can start the internal coaching process immediately, right? And as you start coaching immediately, you start to create raving fans, you get results, you create those coaching ambassadors, you're getting great results inside of the organization, right? As that's going on, you'll also communicate the benefits of coaching. And remember, those raving fans, those ambassadors, they're going to communicate the benefits of coaching as well. Right? So as the famous saying goes, be the change that you want to see in the world. So as you start implementing coaching tools and principles inside of the organization, people are going to notice. Right? Now, you may need some external support with training. You may need a little bit of external support with coaching. Maybe not. It depends on the size of your organization. But one thing is for sure, that as you begin to create that change from the inside out, now the big boss is going to say, hey, what's going on over there? What's this coaching thing you've been doing? Your team is achieving all the KPIs, the engagement is much, much higher. Tell me more about coaching, right? So what you've done is you have influenced the big boss, the decision maker, from the inside out. And then they may decide to get some coaching, their delegation and their mentoring will improve. Right, so as we can see, guys, it's exactly the same diagram, but done by a different way, starting with yourself, right? Whatever role you have within the organization, you can start getting yourself certified. As I mentioned, there are tons of organizations out there where you can get yourself certified. We offer the programs, and that's the way to do it, guys. Now, with mentoring, for those of you who are interested in a very effective mentoring tool, I invite you to search YouTube for Feed Forward. Feed Forward by Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. I think he has a 7-minute video in YouTube where he explains the Feed Forward process. Very, very effective, very, very powerful, and very, very simple. And it's totally aligned with the principles of mentoring, which, remember, is you know, accelerating the development of your teams in a specific area, right? So in other words, you show them a recipe or a strategy on how to accelerate success in a specific area. So as a leader, you can have different mentors in different areas of leadership. So please, if you're interested to learn a great tool, do a YouTube search for Feed Forward Marshall Goldsmith. There's a 7-minute video on there where he explains how to do it, and I'm sure he can explain it more clearly than I can. Cool, guys. So we do have training programs. We have an NLP in July. We have an ICF coach training in July as well. I'm not going to talk about that today. I just want to thank everyone for coming on, join and enjoying us today. I am going to send a little bit of an email summary for you guys to kind of capture maybe what some of us missed. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for sticking around for the duration here. And really, really nice to see some new faces in here. I am going to be doing something like this once a week, especially while we're on lockdown. So each week on Wednesday, I'm going to come up with a new topic. I'm going to send you guys the link. Please share it with your network. Just a great way to share our experiences with how we can stay positive in these uncertain times. And thank you all very, very much. Really nice to meet you all today. Take care. Stay in touch.
Take care.
Thank you very
Goodbye.
much.
Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you very much.